Hey guys, thanks for joining us for the TFL Official Podcast. It's been a year now, and over that year, hundreds of thousands of you have tuned in to listen and to find out about your favorite cars and trucks. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. If you're one of our Patreons, double thank you. And if you want to listen to it as an audio podcast, feel free to tune in to wherever you get your favorite podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, you know the rest. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of TFL Talking Trucks. As always, I'm Andrei Smirnov, and I have a very special guest on the show. This is Mike Spagnola, and he is the VP at SEMA. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Did I get your title correct?
Yeah, I'm actually Vice President of Product Development. I kind of wear a few hats, but oversee OE relations, and I really help manufacturers develop products and bring them to market is probably my primary focus.
Yeah, and you're sitting in the SEMA garage, is that correct?
I am. I'm actually in the installation center right now. You can probably see the lift behind me, but we actually roll up our sleeves and do a lot of work here. You know, it's what I talk about as being what SEMA does the other 360 days a year. You know, we're known for our trade show, of course. We're known for the SEMA show.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of other things during the year. And again, my primary focus is I work between manufacturers, all those SEMA manufacturers that develop products, right? The guys you see at the SEMA show, the guys that, you know, when you go to any sort of website and see aftermarket products, I work between those guys and the OEs and get products developed and take them to market.
Yeah, so of course, SEMA stands for Specialty Equipment Market Association.
Right.
I want kind of this episode is a little bit more focused on what's going on in the recent news. And of course, it has to do with sort of some of the regulations coming from the government, from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and also, what SEMA is doing. And you have something called the RPM Act, correct?
Right.
And is that something you're kind of championing, or how does that work?
Yeah, because I work closely with both our government side, with the OEs and with the aftermarket. One of the programs we do here at the SEMA Garage is we help manufacturers when they develop a new product, any product that affects fuel or air, you know, so take a supercharger, an air intake, a tuner, any of those sorts of things, have to go through an emissions test that satisfies the California Air Resources Board, CARB, or EPA. So we do that testing on behalf of the manufacturer here in the SEMA Garage. And then once we know that that product has passed the requirements, we submit that paperwork to the California Resources Board on behalf of that manufacturer. So we have a full dyno lab, we have a full emissions testing facility. You know, it's about a $6 million investment just in equipment that we do this sort of testing on behalf of the manufacturers. And then we submit that paperwork to CARB, and they get what's called a CARB EO. So you'll see on products an EO sticker that says that product passed, that it fits within the regulations that are required for the Clean Air Act. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I come in, and where I'm an advocate, obviously, for what we're doing now with this RPM Act.
Yeah, and the RPM Act. So a lot of people are out there saying government is outlawing racing cars. There's a lot of big headlines out there, but I kind of want to take a step back and actually understand what is this we're talking about. And RPM Act stands for Recognizing the Protection of Motorsports Act.
Correct.
And obviously, as part of you guys being part of SEMA, I see you guys kind of like, you kind of almost like the middleman or the middle person, right? You're trying to help the entire industry, right? And also, right. I guess there's many different forces at play. There's the government regulation, there's original equipment manufacturers, there's aftermarket manufacturers, but it's all kind of to help the consumer, right?
Correct. Help our manufacturers and the consumer. The automotive aftermarket is a $48 billion a year industry. And so you can imagine, what that means. And we work between our government relations side. We've got a full staff in Washington, D.C. So we are constantly monitoring rules and regulations that are coming down. And if we think they've crossed the line, we step into action. And so, we've got all of that that funding and all of that comes through SEMA to support our attorneys. And and to really watch those government regulations. And, we raise our hand when we think it's, out of bounds and where we have to protect our industry. And we have to protect the enthusiast. We have to protect the whole industry, right? Or otherwise we're not going to be able to modify vehicles any longer.
Okay, so tell me about, so what is this RPM Act about, and what is it, what is it trying to protect against?
Sure. So the Clean Air Act is nothing new. It's been around since the 70s. And it basically says, if there's a pollution control device on the vehicle, or if the vehicle has a certain amount of tailpipe emissions, you have to stay within some sort of regulation, right? We have no argument against that. We support that. Obviously, again, we do all of this work here in the SEMA garage to help, manufacturers develop products, get through the process, get through the paperwork, get through the red tape of all that goes on. And so let's just say you're going to produce an air intake for a new Ford F-150.
Mm-hmm.
We work with you to fill out the paperwork that's required for the California Resources Board. We help you through all of that process. We go through all the testing with you. We actually, again, do the tests here in our facility. If we see that product passes, we turn that paperwork into CARB, and we help you get that CARB-EO. We're good with all of that. And we've interpreted since the 70s that the Clean Air Act still allows you to take a street car and convert it into a race car. Mm-hmm. So if it's going to be used for off-road use, if it's going to be used for racing, for any of those sorts of things, you should have the right to take that vehicle and convert it to a race car.
So and this stands for any vehicle. So it could be a car meant for track use, could be a truck maybe that's only going to be racing off-road. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of that, we believe that you should still have the right to do that. Where EPA, in our opinion, has crossed the line now is they have said you can never take a street car and convert it into a race car, because that car was originally intended for the street. It has emission control devices on it. And you can't tamper with those emission control devices, and therefore you can't convert a street car into a race car. We've had an understanding for years that they wouldn't touch that piece of the legislation, or touch that piece of the Clean Air Act. Recently, they've changed their mind on that, and they have gone after a company, Gearbox C, and their position is that Gearbox C has made products that are intended, or that they've come after them and said you can't convert a street car into a race car. And so that's where we drew the line. So we've filed an amicus brief against EPA that says, wait a minute, guys, we've always understood that you could convert a street car into a race car, and now you're saying we can't. And so, that's huge to us, right? I mean, we have to be able to protect that. Otherwise, you'll no longer be able to take, develop, let's just take a 5.0 Ford motor.
Yeah.
If you're building products that are intended for racing, that could be stretched to say, well, those products can no longer be built. So we have to have the right to take a street car and convert it into a race car.
So obviously we don't have an EPA person here on our episode right now. I'm hoping to get, some sort of, more details from them in the future. But I mean, I imagine what they're maybe trying to do is prevent somebody from putting racing parts on a car and then going on the street, right? I mean, correct. There's some sort of a gray line there where, how do you know if it's a registered vehicle or not? Am I on the right track?
No, you're right. You're right. And we have no argument against that. We put a lot of time and effort into helping manufacturers develop products, that are CARB legal, that if you do build a product that is intended for the street, then it needs to go through the EO process or through an emissions control process. No argument on that.
Yeah.
Where we draw the line is when they've gone the other way and said you can't convert a street car into a race car. And that's, we've always had that understanding with them. They really haven't gone after this piece of wording that says that you can't convert a street car into a race car. They have in this recent filing against a manufacturer. We are not taking the position of the manufacturer. We don't know if that manufacturer is developing products that are intended for racing that end up on the street. We're not arguing that point. And we're not saying whether or not that manufacturer is guilty or innocent. We'll leave that to the courts to decide. But in that suit against that manufacturer, they have stated that you can't take a street car and convert it into a race car. So we actually started the RPM Act a few years ago for this very reason, knowing that this could come up, because it has been mentioned before that you can't convert a street car to a race car. So we wanted to draw the line there and say, you still have to be able to do that. We have to be able to protect racing. We have to protect, manufacturers and developing parts for racing, or the whole off-road racing society dries up. If EPA wants to take this to the nth degree, which in this brief, they are saying that, our industry's done.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the overall industry size. I mean, it's huge. That includes, of course, many other products, right? But I think what you're saying is taking an existing, let's say, an older vehicle, right, converting it only for racing purpose, right? It's a kind of an affordable proposition for some folks, right?
Sure.
Because regular person cannot spend, maybe six figures on a custom built, right, tube chassis or some other vehicle with another, very customized engine or wherever it may be. So that's kind of where you're coming from.
Yeah, there's plenty of classes. If you go to NHRA and in grassroots drag racing, if you go to some circle track racing, if you go to off-road racing, there are plenty of classes for kind of low-end racing. We know about the vehicles, right, that are tube chassis built, that have custom motors and all that. But there's plenty of grassroots racing that uses a car that was once on the street, drifting, any of those sorts of things. So, we have to support that piece of the industry. We don't support or endorse any sort of illegal activity. That's not where we're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like the conversation overall is almost escalating to the fact where, and is usually focused on a tuner, but although, I mean, there's both software and hardware pieces of it, right?
Sure.
And I've seen some elements out there saying, any tuning device that's plugged into the vehicle can be considered illegal, but that doesn't make any sense to me, because if that device is, gone through the right channels and is only allowing certain things to happen, and those things are, legal,
right?
How can that be?
No, we certify tuning devices all the time, and you can still get great horsepower. So there's a misnomer that if it's got a CARB-EO and if it's gone through that certification, you're not getting horsepower. We still regularly see supercharger kits that bump cars up to 650 horsepower. I mean, we can still get air intakes. We can still get great horsepower tuning, and be street legal. I mean, there's still enough bounds there that we can get that sort of process going. So, we're big proponents of, obviously, and we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort. We run this facility here at the SEMA garage as a member benefit. It's not a profit-making facility. It's to help those manufacturers get through this process, because there's a lot of red tape. The amount of paperwork and the amount of work that you have to go through to get a CARB-EO is tough. But we have experts. We have a full staff here of people that just help with paperwork, just through that process. We have 9 people in just the lab that just do this sort of testing work. We're running 2 shifts here in the lab. That's how busy we are. And in fact, we are in the process of developing a second lab right now.
That's very interesting. And I guess where this kind of gets into the public's eye maybe is with diesel trucks, right? And diesel pickup trucks specifically, where somebody sees, a truck basically exhausting some, dark or black smoke, and red flags come up for people, general public, right? But once again, there is there's people who may choose to go down that road, but there's also people who, do that in the legal way.
Right. Again, as I said, we don't support any sort of illegal activity. Rolling coal or, DPF deletes, those sorts of things are illegal, and we don't support that. And unfortunately, what's happened is the whole industry has been cast. I can't tell you, it just turns my stomach every time I see an article on SEMA and they show a truck just blowing coal, right? They just show this truck just driving down the street, just full of black soot. That's not our industry. That's not what we're looking to do. And we don't support, the rolling of coal on the street. If you're going to do a tractor pull or you're going to do something off road, that's great. But, that sort of activity, or that's how we all get cast into, into that. But that's what SEMA is. We're not. There is, if I were to take you through the lab or through the garage right now, you'd see plenty of vehicles that are making great horsepower that are going through the certification process, and that are clean. They're still, within the boundaries in the tailpipe emission standards, and so we're doing our part. And when EPA, says that tries to interpret the rules in a way that we don't think is fair, we've got to put our gloves on and go to battle.
And that's what the RPM Act is, basically.
It is.
Yeah.
So, it was actually introduced in 2019. It has had to weave its way through Congress. It did pass in 2020 as part of the energy bill, but it never got voted on by the Senate. And so we're in the process of reintroducing it right now. We need that support. So, for your listeners, they can go to the SAN website, or they can go to the RPM website. We're always looking for them to join our fight. Doesn't cost anything. We just, there's a place to click on there to throw your support. You can also call your local senators, Congress, and help us get this RPM Act through, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take, the community to push back on this one.
I gotcha. So what I'm hearing from you is, and over the last couple of weeks, I had this feeling that, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, but the sky is not falling. So I want to get kind of your perspective on this, because, when people are saying, all tuners will be illegal soon, all modifications will be, outlawed, race cars are outlawed, sky is falling. But what I'm hearing you say is there are ways, especially with software, right, that are done in a clean way that pass emission regulations, right? Yeah. So and you're actually working, like you said, continuously to make that happen or help that happen.
Yeah, there is a pathway. There's been a pathway since the 70s. We've been part of this for a long time. We've invested literally tens of millions of dollars in this project. There is a pathway. There is a way for manufacturers to get their products, high performance products, legal. And so we support that pathway. Where the sky could be falling is if EPA continues to take the stance that you can't convert a streetcar into a race car. That's the problem. That's an issue. Because then all sorts of racing, all sorts of conversions become illegal. And so, if a manufacturer, SEMA or a non-SEMA manufacturer, is developing products that aren't legal, that's not our beef. Our beef is this, the ability to convert a streetcar into a race car. And we support the legal activity of developing products that can be used on the street that create performance. That could be towing performance, right? It can be all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
It can be for the occasional off-road guy that wants to go rock climbing. It can be for all those sorts of sports. There's
also efficiency tuning, right? There's people who want great mileage on the highway or be able to control certain things.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's even in the commercial industry, you've got fleets of trucks that are used for carpentry or plumbing or any of those sorts of things. There's ways to tune those vehicles for efficiency. So it's not just some guy with a high performance vehicle.
What else we've seen EPA do is recently, within the last 6 years, I mean, they've been getting pretty strict, and they actually went after like Volkswagen, which is an OEM, right? There's another that was a whole TDI and Dieselgate. So it's not just small companies, right? I mean, they're trying to watch across all kind of aspects of it. There was also more recent, Ram EcoDiesel a truck action that they were taking as well.
Yeah, so those vehicles, from what I understand, were considered to be outside the boundaries of tailpipe emissions, and so they have gone after those sort of guys. EPA and CARB has an arm too that will review manufacturers' products that are being sold, and if they don't have a CARB EO, EPA recognizes the CARB EO system, and so if you go through the CARB EO, the California process, EPA recognizes that for all 50 states. So California Resource Board is California, of course, rules.
Yeah.
EPA is the other 49 states. And but if you go through the CARB process, it's recognized for all 50 states. And so there is a pathway again. There is a way to do all of this. There is a way that we support. But yes, EPA and CARB both have gone after both small and large manufacturers who they believe are developing products that are illegal for street use.
Yeah, and also, I mean, these regulations apply to at various kind of levels to commercial vehicles too. Semi trucks have to do different, types of emissions controls, right? Delivery vehicles, etc.
Right. Yeah. So again, there are rules and there are regulations in place that everybody, whether it's a SEMA manufacturer, non-SEMA manufacturer, whether it's a large truck company, whether it's commercial, have to abide by. And we are okay with that. I mean, we support that. We support the production and development of vehicles and products that are within the rules of the Clean Air Act. No argument there. And we do a lot of work with our members to walk them through that process.
Cool. What some of the other fun stuff are you working on? You're in the garage. You said you guys are busy on many fronts.
Yep. So again, probably the biggest part of my duties in the SEMA garage are to, again, help manufacturers develop products and take them to the street. So, for example, the new Bronco. We have worked alongside a Ford Motor Company and aftermarket suspension guys, tuner guys, all those sorts of products. That's where we really come into play. We work between those manufacturers and the OE to say, okay, when that Bronco hits the streets, let's make sure there are plenty of aftermarket products ready to hit the market. And so while I can't always talk about what goes on here in the garage, if you came to the garage, you'd see that there are signs up saying, no photos, those sorts of things, because we work with hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers that are getting ready to develop something that's about to hit the street. So, it's a fun part of the job. So we get to see things way prior to them coming out. We get to see vehicles, before they hit the marketplace. But that is our kind of our duty, right? So we work with suspension guys. We work with, you name any aftermarket product. It could be a tonneau cover for a truck. When the new Nissan Frontier comes out here in the fall, all those aftermarket products, we work between Nissan and the aftermarket on developing those products. And so it's a fun part of the job. I really enjoy that. I've spent my life in product development in the truck market, in the private industry. Mm-hmm. I came to SEMA 7 years ago to help develop the SEMA garage and to do this piece of the business. But yeah, we get to see things way before they come out. We work alongside those manufacturers. We also build some charity cars here every year, or some show cars here every year. So each year we'll pick up a vehicle or two and work with aftermarket suppliers, sometimes with students, and we'll build the car here in the garage and then take it to somewhere like Barrett Jackson or one of the auction houses and auction the vehicle off, and the money goes to charity. So, that's kind of a fun part of the business as well, kind of a fun part of what we could do here in the garage. So While I'm in a dress shirt today, we regularly roll our sleeves up and do the fun stuff too. So we've got engineers here on staff. We've got a lot of specialists on staff, and we develop products. A lot of cool stuff.
That's cool. And obviously it's confidential because, well, it's competitive too, right? I mean,
Right.
You don't want a lot of competitors knowing what the other competitor is working on. So
Yep. Yeah, so we're Switzerland. We can have let's just take an air intake, and two guys are developing it for the Bronco, and I'm just going to say one makes 10 horsepower and one makes 7. We know that, but we can't tell the guy that's making 7 how to make 10, right?
So do you sign a lot of NDAs or?
We do a lot of that. Yeah, we obviously have to have the trust of the manufacturer, right? So they need to be, if they want to come in here and 3D print a part, we have 3D printers here. We have, again, engineers on staff. We have CAD data. We have scanning. We have ferro arms. Ferro arm is a device where I can scan this coffee cup with a ferro arm and put it into the computer and then reprint it out on the 3D printer. So, we can reverse engineer products. We can, we know what stuff works. We know what stuff has failed. And we work with that manufacturer to, on the quality aspect of it, on the design aspect. And, it's a fun, cool job. It's, I get to play a lot in parts and seeing what's coming to the marketplace.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I always enjoy, before, of course, COVID, of course, the SEMA show. And is there any word yet? Is it too early to tell, what's happening with the shows?
We're on. We're actually going to be in the new hall. So the convention center has built a new West Hall. I think it's over 500,000 square feet, and the truck and the styling sections are going to be in that hall. And so that's an exciting thing. And, each year SEMA at the show is over 2,000 new products that get introduced at the show, 2,000 to 3,000 new products. And, we're a big part of that. And so we're really looking forward to this year. So far, so good. It looks like we're going to be able to pull the show off.
I'll get my walking shoes on.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I'll be out there. Okay.
Yeah, great. It's it's an amazing event. It is business to business, business to business event. There are outdoor displays as well as indoor, but it's just it's Old Friends Week, it's Car Week, it is we've all seen the YouTube videos and the online information about the show, but it's a great event. I've been going now. This will be my 41st year this year, so really excited to be back.
Well, Mike, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I learned quite a bit still. I'm still learning about this. And so once again, guys, if you want to learn more about the RPM Act, it's also SEMA.org, right?
Correct.
Is your website, and RPM Act, you can search it up right there. Yep. You can learn more about it and go from there.
Yeah, we need your support. So please, everybody, have a look at those sites and sign on.
All right.
For our support. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mike.